الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Your brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Welcome to Islamic Oasis Live. Uh, as you know, of course, the title is Regional War, the prospects of regional war. There is a lot going on in the Muslim world and also in Europe, in the world in general. We have elections coming up here in the West. So you can imagine where this election, since it's also very, it's a very divided nation with a lot going on. You have Europe, where leaders inside Europe are being assassinated, which is not a new thing because it's happening. It's becoming a common thing actually in Europe. Then you have what we are seeing in the Middle East. That you have the Russian-Ukraine situation where America is involved there. Putin is, as we speak, there is a lot going on with Russia and China. Putin has been re-elected he continues to be the leadership of Russia. So the world is a very, very busy place, and we have to figure out what's going on. We need to know what's going on, especially as Muslims, because almost everywhere a lot has to do with us, the Muslim Ummah. And so to discuss this, we have our own, alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, we always have Brother Adnan, a historian, someone who writes on geopolitics all the time, who writes different estimates on what's happening, an analyst on politics, who keeps a very keen eye on what's happening, especially in the Middle East and the world in general. So we're always honored to have him, and inshallah we have him today. Brother Adnan, welcome back to Islamic Oasis Live.
Assalamu alaikum. Good to be here, Sheikh. It's been a while, but it's good to see you again.
It's always good to see you, Sheikh. Let's start with Sheikh. First of all, where is the war in Gaza going?
So yeah, it's probably a good place to start. So we're about 7 months in now into the war. I mean, we say it's a war. A war is where you have two sides, relatively similar capabilities, and they fight. I mean, this is not that sort of war. What you've got here is one people who have tanks, who have fighter jets, who have a defense industry, who have a chemical weapons program, who have nuclear weapons.
And you have another people
backing them. Yeah, and you have support of the superpower and the West.
Right.
Then you have the Palestinian people who at most have rockets, have grenades, and have guns. So this is not an equal fight by any measure. And that's why we've seen death and destruction. That's why we've seen carpet bombing, because the Palestinian people are unable to defend themselves. So when Ukraine was unable to defend itself against Russia, the West intervened militarily. They're providing arms, they are providing support, they're providing aid, they're even providing troops. We haven't seen that with Palestine. We haven't seen the Western nations support the Palestinians to defend them against the genocide. And we haven't seen the Muslim rulers intervene actually to help and protect and defend the Palestinians on that side. So really what you find, Sheikh, is Israel has continued with its war. It's carrying out a massacre. It's now began the last area of Gaza that it hadn't attacked, which is Rafah. We hear stories every day of the hospitals and the mass graves of what they've already done. And the Western nations really are looking the other way. The Muslim rulers have even stopped talking against Israel now. We saw at the beginning they used to at least criticize Israel. Even that stopped now. And unfortunately, that's where we are. On the flip side, the world is watching in horror. People can't believe that the genocide is being televised live. Muslims, non-Muslims, Japan, Africa, South Africa, they're all watching this and they just can't believe that the genocide taking place. And, they said after World War II, when people found out about the Holocaust, never again. And it is being televised live. And, there's a big divide over this. And really, even if Israel wins this in the short term, even if America saves its ally in the short term, in the long term, they are only going to be losers because they've lost credibility. They have lost any confidence people had that these people have values that they stand for. These are the nations that said, we care about human rights, we care about rule of law, we're going to stop a genocide, we're going to protect the weak. We have seen the opposite. And it's really revealing the truth of the West. It's really revealing I mean, not that we needed to know. We saw in Iraq and Afghanistan what the West was really about. This is now really showing us even further if we need to know. So that's why I'm not surprised there's so much divisions in Western nations. You know, where you are in America, you got students protesting. They're having to use military tactics against students who are protesting. In Europe, similar protests have started now. Protests happen every weekend as well. So we're in quite a unique place, really. So although things look very bleak, I actually feel what Gaza has shown is actually exposed what the West and all its allies stand for. And I don't think they can recover from this. This is, it's become so obvious, people are in shock. And that's why South Africa, the nation who lived under apartheid, have taken a case to The Hague. You know, they couldn't sit still and watch this happen. They're doing something about it. So that's really where we are in terms of the Gaza war at the moment.
Sheikh, before we go to prospects of war and what does this actually look like? I mean, at least from learning from past world wars, how they began. This idea of the Palestinian state, usually, you know, I asked this question, Abu Talha was on last week, and I was asking him, you know, usually if you're going to have a Palestinian state, I mean, you're talking about cutting up a region, because from looking at what the landscape looks like now, I mean, I can't tell where the Palestinian state will be. You have, I mean, there is prospect of civil war within Israel. You have a situation where you're talking about what could have been or what was supposed to be Palestinian state, close to 700,000 settlers there, and Khan Yunus or Abtu Khan Yunus is in the hands of the Yahud. And then I think this morning also the war minister, he defense minister, he's saying that look, you there is no way of Israeli army or you're not going to be directly ruling Gaza. You're going to have to give it to some Palestinian entity that does something or at least has some type of control in Gaza. So what happens, Sheikh? They will take, from what I am getting, at least from my understanding, is that Rafah will be part of the Egyptian, some type of a zone. It will be given to Egypt. It may even become autonomous, and then anything south of Gaza, all the way up to northern Gaza, or all of this will be completely in the hands of Israel. Or is this right now what the future of Gaza looks like?
So the reason why things look problematic is the two-state solution, a Palestinian state, whatever its shape or form, and a Zionist state. This in origin was the American agenda, it was the Western agenda. This was the agenda of the local people.
Of course.
Before 1917, Arab Jews, Christians, they all lived side by side together. The Brits came, the military occupied. Many European Zionists then migrated because there was a lot of anti-Semitism in Europe. And then 1948, all of a sudden, they declared this Israeli state. Really, what's happened since then is the right wing in Israel, and actually most Israelis, they've never agreed with two states. In fact, they want the whole of Palestine and more. So what they do is they've always paid lip service because this is a solution imposed by the global power. And because Israel relies on aid and military equipment and security, it has no choice. But as we've seen in this conflict, the Israeli officials are openly disagreeing with America. They're openly criticizing America. They are openly saying, no, they cannot be a Palestinian state because that goes against Israeli security. So America will have to impose this. And because America is the global power, it's always busy with something else in another part of the world. And during that period, what's Israel been doing? It's been building settlements. It's been expanding. So we saw the beginning of this war or genocide in Gaza. Israeli officials, one after the other, we're going to throw them into the desert. We should drop a nuke on them. They're making biblical statements. Now, this might be new for a lot of people. It's not. They've always been saying this. This goes back to before even Israel was created. Their view is we're going to seize the land. What happens to indigenous people? Well, they're going to be relocated. They're going to be expelled. So that's what they've been doing.
So, no. When it comes to what you're
That's
saying,
actually what they've been doing.
right? So, what you're saying now, as far as what's happening in Gaza, are we? So, what happens to Rafah? Rafah, the people in this area, the people will be pushed out to Arish, and you're looking at a mass exodus now. What's the deal? I mean,
see, as far as Israel's concerned, as far as they're concerned, they don't care what happened to the people. They just want Gaza. They just want Palestine. So their view is, if the Gulf states wants to take them on, if the Egyptians want to take them, in fact, they view with the surrounding Arab countries, the Palestinians are their problem.
Them being
That's their
Arab,
view.
yeah.
That's actually, in fact, that's always been their view. The problem Israel has is historically it's not been able to carry out a genocide like this. So that's why there's always been a slow motion expulsion by Israel. They go to war, they mow the lawn, as they say, regularly.
Mow the lawn, right.
Look, everyone's looking at Gaza. No one's looking at what Israel's doing in the West Bank.
Right.
They're increasing settlements. In fact, Sheikh, one of the reasons why there was so little military around Gaza on the 7th of October, because most of Israeli military is in the West Bank, because they were planning an operation to build more settlements. They were planning to seize
Jenin
and kick people out. Yeah. So Israel actually has been continuing with this. The problem America has is, for them, Israel is a tool they use. However, Israel follows America's agenda in the region, but it's not sitting still. It's continuing doing what it wants to do as well. So if you look at it, America could put sanctions on Israel. America could stop military aid. America could stop giving them weapons. If they do that, the war's over. But that would undermine 50 years of work. 50 years of Israel is powerful. We support Israel. Israel has the right to be here. Right? That's actually the problem they have. So I think up until now, there's been 3 plans proposed. The original one was from Israel, which is Gaza should all go into the desert. And America rejected that. Then you had the Egyptian deal where they've been talking to Israel and Hamas, where they have regular ceasefires, they transfer hostages, and then there's some long-term settlement in terms of 2 states. And then you've got a third discussion going on with some of the Gulf states that they will invest and they will effectively manage Gaza. And we've also heard, even in some Israeli circles, they're saying that no, Israel does the rebuilding and Israel repopulates Gaza.
Right.
So what you can see here, Israel has its own agenda. Now, Israel won't be able to achieve all its agenda because America can impose things if it wants to. The problem America has at the moment is election year. And it's not good for your election prospects if you come across anti-Israel. Because there's many people, many evangelical Christians who support Israel. So, as I mentioned before, America raised a spoilt child, and the spoilt child is doing exactly what it does. It wants to do what it wants. It doesn't care what you're saying, and it doesn't want to hear the opposite. That's actually what's going on here. The other final thing that's really worked for Israel is, look, there's 450 million Muslims in the Middle East. Israel is, I think, 9 million population, and only 5 million are Jews, Zionists. If the Muslim rulers do something, that's such a major problem for Israel. And after 7 months, the Muslim rulers have done a lot of talking, but they've not actually done anything.
Right.
So from an Israeli perspective, they are disobeying America. They don't need to worry about the Muslim rulers. So for them, we might as well execute the agenda we've always had. What's the obstacle for the agenda? They're massacring the Gazans. No one's, the West are not accusing them of genocide. In fact, Biden keeps giving more equipment to Israel. The Muslim rulers
another
aren't doing anything.
some $10 million today, or $1 billion, something like this today that was packaged. So, Sheikh, the thing is it about? I mean, they keep giving them weapons. So how long can this thing go on, Sheikh? I mean, can even like now? I was hearing there is Haaretz, I think, the newspaper, it was talking about mothers saying that we're not going to allow our babies to go and die now in Rafah. That toll has been very high. I mean, since they entered this phase of war in Jabalia, it seems the first day, almost first hour, was almost 50 killed. I think I was reading Cable yesterday, Cable News. There's a Cable newspaper, I think Monitor, Cable, something, Spectator, something like this. It was saying that, look, it looks so crazy for the Jewish army that you have, it looks like there's shadow. They don't know where they're being killed from. And it's becoming hell. I mean, most of those soldiers are also 19, 20 years old, going home in body bags.
What you find is, although Israel's losing the propaganda war globally, what they've tried to do is control information about soldiers' deaths and injuries. But the problem in any war is, and the problem with any war, as America found out in Vietnam and Iraq and Afghanistan, you can hide how many deaths there are. But when someone's brother doesn't come back home,
right,
when a mother's child doesn't come back home, information gets out. And once it gets to a large enough level, you've got a problem.
I mean, yesterday they actually had the hospitals on high alert. Helicopters were literally picking up injured.
There's been one case of a journalist. He went to a hospital and he reported how many coffins they were, and he was arrested just for reporting on the truth. And the left wing in Israel, they always, because obviously the left wing in Israel, they view the right wing are taking Israel down the hole. So the left have always, all the magazines, all the channels, all the major left media outlets, they've always exposed what Israel's been doing. There's still question marks over 7th of October. The left keep investigating, saying there's a lot of things that don't add up. You've got the parents of the hostages. They're protesting outside Netanyahu's house. Now we know that Hamas actually agreed 2-3 days after 7th of October that they prepared to return all the hostages. In return, what they want is a comprehensive deal. And Israel still went ahead with the war. So although we don't know the numbers, the fact that we're 7 months into this war, the fact that the people that Israelis are fighting don't have weapons they can put up, that shows you something's not going right. I mean, if you think about it, Israel should have won this long time ago. You're not fighting a military capable nation.
I mean,
and it's not like there's supplies going to Palestine from Iran or from Syria or from Egypt where they're supplying them with weapons. That shows you that this doesn't add up. The war's not going according to plan.
So, and does America see this? It's not going according to plan. And I'm looking for an article that was a very interesting article yesterday. Look, it says here. Well, now there is why Israeli defense chief broke his silence about Netanyahu's Gaza war paralysis. Imagine the word paralysis, and and then on the top of that, it's what I mean, Sheikh. I mean, the idea that look, what according to what they're saying is that it looks like Netanyahu is just trying to keep his job or trying to avoid jail.
I think many Israelis believe that. You know, Biden kept asking, what's your day after plan? What's your strategy? It seems Netanyahu is doing exactly what America did in Iraq and Afghanistan. There was no post-regime plan. All he's doing is, I'm going to carry out a massacre. I'm going to keep using the events of the 7th of October to justify what I'm doing. As I mentioned, what he's doing is destroying any credibility Israel had in the long run. In the short run, he may win this war. In the short run, he can say, I'm the one that dealt with Hamas. In the long run, Israel's already lost. Whatever credibility it had, whatever support it had, whatever people believed that we should support Israel and, deal with any injustices, a lot of that's actually gone. If Israel isn't winning the war, this means America can force it into negotiations. It means America can impose more things on it. Really, if Israel had won this war already, Israel could have said, this is what we're going to do now to Gaza. There's nothing anybody could say, but they've won, isn't it? But the fact that after 7 months...
Why is it... Look, to the point, it says here, what happens when Holocaust no longer prevents the world from seeing Israel as it is? So they're talking more even point that they're losing even the propaganda war, the public opinion war, anything, it's all gone. I mean, people are seeing what's going on. And to the point...
what you're finding now,
let me ask you this, Sheikh. Why... What with everything that Israel has, it's losing the war. I mean, what are the factors? What are the main factors that you can think of? From what you're seeing, that this is unsustainable for Israel.
The first thing is look, if you're going to war, what does victory look like? What needs to happen when you can say we've won? So in Iraq, the famous thing was when they pulled the statue of Saddam Hussein down in Baghdad.
The end game.
Right? End game. In Afghanistan, it was we've removed the Taliban regime from Kabul. We've taken over Kabul, the capital. Right? Didn't last for long, but that's what they said. In Gaza, what's the sign that you've won? No one knows who the Hamas leadership is. Who are Hamas in Palestine? No Israeli's seen who these people are. If you capture them, no one's going to say you've won the war. If you take over all the main intersections, no Israeli's going to say, oh, that means we've won the war. So what you find here is they just thought we're going to carry out a massacre. We've got cover with the 7th of October, and that will be enough. And their hatred and their arrogance drove them rather than let's think strategically. So how is it you were attacked on 7th of October, you had global sympathy, and in weeks the sympathy has gone to the Palestinians all of a sudden? The reason why the sympathy has gone to the Palestinians, people can see what Israel's doing. You're bombing hospitals, you're bombing children. In fact, 15,000 children have been killed.
Yes. Yeah.
When you ask Israelis, how many Hamas members have you killed, they can't give you a number. So if you can't give us a number, 33,000 people have died. Who are you killing? So what you find here is they've created their own problem. That's literally what they've done. Rather than, let's arrest every Hamas member, take him to court. Let's put them on trial.
Is that even possible? I mean, when they say, okay, let's find Hamas members and things like this, I mean, who's Hamas member? I mean, now you...
Well, this is the problem.
So they're just saying, okay, carpet bomb the whole city, 25 miles of it and just...
Yeah, but this is, if you look at Israel, its creation, its existence, it's always been, we're going to seize and expel. It's never been, we're going to win the people over. It's never been, let's live together. It's never been, we'll give you some powers. Right? This is, you think that way if your plan is, let's live together. Their plan always was, there's no negotiation, we are going to seize and we're going to take. So people like Norman Finkelstein, he believes that Israel abuses the Holocaust to do murders. These sort of guys believe what Israel's done is we had global sympathy with the Holocaust. They abuse, in fact, they say they rape the concept of Holocaust. So now, if you criticize Israel, you're anti-Semitic. If you if you question Israel, you're a Jew hater. They've abused the term so much that no one even cares about it anymore. Even the word Holocaust was linked to Israel.
Right.
They've used and abused the term so much that people just don't take the term seriously anymore. And, just think about this. Many Jews around the world in Israel, their families were victims of the Holocaust. Everybody recognizes that. So how can these people be carrying out a genocide today? Just think about that. You're victims of a genocide. How on earth can you be committing a genocide? And for years, Israel hid behind the media. For years, it blamed the Palestinians. Now the cover's been removed. People can see the murderers, the aggressors, the colonialists, the settlers, the aggressors are the Zionists, are the Israelis. It's not the Palestinians.
Criminals, man.
And now when Israeli officials go on TV, they struggle. Their PR war is useless now. I mean, the Israeli ambassador to the UK, just absolutely useless. Can't even put two sentences together. The pro-support, what you're finding now, people like Mehdi Hassan, Candice Owens, they've been sacked because they just question Israeli officials. So people have seen through this now. So this is the point, that even if Israel wins this war, even if it wins this battle, in the long run, it's lost. So they may win now, but they can only lose after this. That's a scenario they're in.
Sheikh, I mean, where is the Palestinian state? Where will it form? I mean, I've heard that Jordan will be part of the Palestinian state, Jericho to part of Eastern Jerusalem, part of the Western, West Bank, a little bit, or whatever is left of West Bank. Is this agreed upon now?
No, so what you find is, look, the Palestinian state alongside a Jewish state, this has always been the American agenda. And where exactly the borders will be, this is something America left to the long run. So the Muslim rulers, their job is to be part of where America believes it should be. Obviously, Israel has a different view. The Israeli right wing, who have been in government for the last 2-3 decades, their view is they can't have the West Bank be a separate state. The West Bank is high land, it's in the mountains, it overlooks Israel. That's a security nightmare. If you've got another state next to Israel, because Israel is such an artificial country, so small. I think I've read from the Jordan River to the sea, a fighter jet can do that in 2 or 3 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
Right. If the West Bank is if the West Bank is a state, you can see Israel, the heart of Israel is from Haifa along the coast all the way down to Gaza, that area. That's where the majority of the Israelis are. If the West Bank is a Palestinian state, that's just too big. So that's why they've been building settlements. They don't want a Palestinian state. But the Palestinian state is the American agenda. It's not necessarily the Israeli agenda. So America will always have to enforce the Palestinian state. So even when there were talks going on between Saudi Arabia and Israel, normalization, Biden and Blinken were saying to Netanyahu that areas of the West Bank need to become autonomous. That will be where Palestine is. And obviously Netanyahu disagreed with this. So there is a question mark here. Practically, how will Palestine ever be a state? But the reason why this is a practical issue is because Israel has been building settlements. Israel doesn't want there to be a Palestinian state. Israel wants the whole land, and the Palestinians is the problem of Lebanon, of Jordan, of Egypt. Because their view is the only way we're going to survive, we have this whole land. And then many right-wing Israelis, they want more land. They've got the Greater Israel project in their mind. Right? So that's why they're not. So our rulers, unfortunately, America told them this is the agenda, they execute it. The Israeli leadership are weaker than the Muslim rulers. They have no resources, but they're still pushing back against the American agenda. So America will have to impose this. And there are some politicians in Israel, especially on the left, they feel they need to work with America. Without America, they won't survive. So they follow the American agenda in totality. But the right wing, you've seen it, the defense minister, the home affairs minister, Netanyahu, they've been openly contradicting America. I think the right wing, what they feel is Biden's election, we can abuse him. And if Trump wins, Trump's always been a supporter of Israel. That's what they're thinking. But, let's see what happens in the election in America. I mean, there might even be a civil war in America. America might have more important issues to deal with rather than Israel.
I mean, it's very contentious, that's for sure. I mean, where this thing is going.
And even then, I would say, we're talking about Palestine, Ukraine's not winning in the Ukraine war. Russia's on top.
Right. He's on China.
On the other side
China
of the world,
saying, but say, is there any serious opposition to the American hegemony today? Opposition in the sense that can somebody really take a stand against the US?
Oh, they can. The thing is America is not the power it was in the year 2000. The American military has been exposed, Iraq and Afghanistan. The American economy has been exposed. And now you have a continental power in the Far East, China. You have Russia expanding. Most of the countries in the world, they see China today more credible than America.
Right. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, that's true.
Forget many of the rulers, they're still with America. However, China has a lot to offer. So that's why America keeps saying that our biggest challenge now is China, is Russia. Because these countries are powerful. These countries have developed their military, they developed their economy. And America, to lose one region is a reduction in American power. America got its handful. And this is globally. America's got problems internally. You got Texas saying we've had enough. The federal government, if you're not going to do anything, we're going to secede and we're going to deal with the invasion from Mexico. Half of America still believes the last election was rigged. They don't believe Biden is the true primary president. In the next election, army officials are saying if Trump doesn't win, someone from the army might do something about it. So really, this is the weakest position America's ever been in. And if anything kicks off, America will have to decide what's our priority. Maybe we can't deal with the issue in the Middle East or in South Asia because we've got bigger problems at home. That's the scenario that we have at the moment. And all of these problems, I would argue, these are America's own creation. If America stuck to its principles, if America didn't invade, if America didn't trample over the values it believed in, it'd have more credibility. But because they did all of that, Americans apparently, when they do surveys, they're the most negative about America globally. This is the scenario that we're actually in. America is not in a strong position. And if something kicks off around the world, I mean, you just take the example of Ukraine. In Europe, there's a lot of discussion that they might have to do conscription, they might have to do the draft. What that means is when you expect a big war and you don't have enough soldiers, you're telling your public, you're getting them ready, look, you might all have to join the war. And the reason why this is a discussion point, is that Russia has taken over 20% of Ukraine. There's nothing Ukraine can do to change that. So if Russia's expanding, how do you stop them? In Europe, when a country expands, the whole continent has to come together for a continent-wide war. In World War I, World War II, Germany expanded, the whole of Europe had to go to war with it. They are now saying the last way to stop Russia now is potentially we might need to have a continent-wide war. So you Muslims, you young people, you might be drafted in to go and fight in Europe. They're saying that openly.
No way. I did see a interview talking. I think they were talking to the chief of NATO, the American, the general, saying that what should be done by the countries in the region to prepare for war. What are these? I've never heard these discussions, Sheikh. What should be done? What are the from the infrastructure even perspective? They were talking about what the countries should do to be prepared for war. So
that's because they can see now that with Russia winning, Ukraine losing.
But Sheikh,
the only way to stop this is you have to go to war.
Can Russia stop this war, or does Russia want to stop this war, or is it, as they say, it's quantitative easing also for Russia?
No, so for Russia, it's been a problem since the collapse of the Soviet Union that NATO and Europe have been expanding to Russia. You've got to keep in mind that there's no real border between Russia and Europe. That border has gone backwards and forwards for the last 600-700 years. So in 1990, Russia's border went all the way to Germany. Then in 1991, that border moved all the way to Ukraine. So for Russia, Ukraine was too much. Ukraine's going to join the EU. Europe would have been all the way at the border of Russia. And Russian leaders have been saying this time and time again. So they've now gone to war to do something about it. The problem was when the Cold War finished, the Europeans reduced their armies. They got rid of loads of equipment. They even cut the funding of the army. So for the last 30 years, European armies have been shrinking. This is why when Donald Trump came to power, he said, enough's enough. If you want to be part of NATO, you have to put more money into your military. And now what they're finding is there's a war in Europe. If there's a war in Europe, you've got to get ready. And remember, Europeans, this is the history of Europe. They've always been at war with each other. France, Britain, Holland, Spain, Portugal, Germany, Russia. This is the last 6, 7 years, 100 years history of this continent. They go to war, they're their powers. As far as Russia's concerned, they're on a permanent war footing.
So, I mean,
Soviet Union collapsed and they were destroyed. Putin came to power and he's managed to revitalize the nation. But during that period, the Europeans have been shrinking their military. So Germany, for example, is in the worst position at the moment with its military. It's never even what they thought was America would provide us security. America would provide us with a nuclear umbrella.
Did US make Europe weak? I mean, has it succeeded in making Europe weak? And at the same time now be more dependent on the US, meaning NATO. Can NATO go to war, Sheikh? I mean, if NATO does go to war, that means United States goes to war. And if Europe loses, I mean, if let's say if it starts losing some type of territory to Russia and things like that, that means now not only Europe is losing, but also the United States can't keep control of the security of Europe.
Yeah. So, America's view towards Europe has been twofold. Europe is a continent. It's about the size of America from an economic perspective, so it could be a threat. So America's view is we need to make sure Europe isn't a threat to us. At the same time, they want to work with Europe in different regions of the world, right, where we work together. So America did this in two ways. One was you invest in Europe. One was you have good economic ties. The other thing for America is how would Europe defend itself against Russia? So America has always presented itself to Europe, we're your security guarantee. If Russia ever invaded, we are your security guarantee. So during the Cold War, that was a security guarantee. From Finland all the way down to Turkey, America said we'll build bases, we'll put nuclear weapons in, and we'll help you defend against Russia. Right? Now, if Russia didn't exist, or if Russia wasn't a power, that threat's not there, and Europe wouldn't need a security umbrella from America. So you got to remember that under Trump, Europe had the worst relationship with America. Trump used to bully the German leader. He used to talk down to the French leader. He used to not even take the British leader very seriously. The moment Russia invaded, all of these countries got behind America because Russia's expanding now. So this is the problem. And the thing is, if there's a war in Europe, China's not going to stand on the other side of the world and do nothing. China's going to think this is the best opportunity to go and take Taiwan. Right. Now, can America fight 2 wars? Well, America fought 2 wars in the Middle East for the last 2 decades. That didn't turn out well.
So this is why America's... I mean, this will be more than what America can handle, Sheikh. These are conventional armies. These are not...
I mean, I remember Robert Gates said that the next foreign minister who takes America to 2 wars in Eurasia, he's got to get his head examined. They can't fight 2 wars. But America's an empire. It has to be everywhere. China's not an empire. China doesn't have to be everywhere. Taiwan is 100 miles from China's border. Taiwan is across the Pacific for America. Europe is across the Atlantic. So can you see, America has to be everywhere. And if pockets of issues occur, if the Muslim rulers get overthrown, if the Iranian clerics get overthrown, if another part of the world something happens, and now you've got a civil war going on inside America, how many issues is America going to deal with? This is why people say America has the Roman Empire problem. You've got so many problems, how many are you going to deal with? That's what America is. It's got the empire problem. This is how empires collapse. You have to be everywhere. It costs too much, and your own people, and you're seeing that in America. One of the reasons why Trump is popular is we've wasted our time in wars. We've got to think about America. Yeah? What wars have they been involved in Iraq and Afghanistan? That's why the American public are saying, what's that got to do with us? Because those wars suited certain people. It suited the defense companies. It supported the neocons. It didn't help the majority of people. That's why if America goes to war now, it will have a massive problem. People are up for it.
So Sheikh, now
this is the America we have today. This is like the time to break free now from American hegemony. and from the Western liberal order. This is the
in many
worst
ways,
case scenario for America would be
the
is
sick
that
man.
people. This is
Now
it.
the sick
I mean,
man.
it is. It's a sick. It's just, I mean, I was just reading today. The Indian foreign minister. He was asked a question where someone said to them about the credibility of the Indian elections, and he said to them that, you know, the country you're from, America, you are no position to be talking to us about elections when half your country doesn't even believe the election result at the last one. That's a scenario we're in at the moment.
Sheikh, a few more things here. We have Egypt, and then we have Iran. Egypt, what situation is it? Sheikh, I was just wondering, what did they do to Egypt for Egypt to be so quiet? Yeah, you know, it's, of course, I mean, even population, Sheikh, and to control that population of 80, 90 million or 100 million, let's say, Egyptians, and to really constrain Egypt like that in the way that the West has constrained even the people of Egypt. What do you think? What happened, Sheikh? I mean, they bought out everyone that's inside Egypt as far as the army and the politicians are concerned. Is this, what did they offer to Egypt that Egypt is saying, all of Egypt is yours, do as you wish?
So look, you got to remember that it was Egypt that first normalized relations with Israel back in 1979.
Before Turkey, before Morocco, before any of these?
The thing with Egypt, because Egypt's the regional power, Israel always saw that Egypt's always a problem. So when Egypt normalized relations, the Yahud were like, you know, Allahu Akbar, we've survived. So the whole southern of Israel has a border with Egypt. If Egypt's no longer the enemy, we have survived now. Because Jordan can't destroy us, Lebanon can't destroy them, Syria can't. Egypt was the only one that could. And why did they do it? Well, the Egyptian military leadership is a corporation. They have their own economic interests. It's not in their interest to go to war with Israel. In fact, they like to have good relations. The biggest problem the Egyptian military leadership has is their population. So that's why they use an iron grip to control the population.
Yeah, it's beyond belief.
Yeah, that's their strategy. Now, 10, 15 years ago, we had the Arab Spring.
Right.
And that was the first time the people showed enough's enough. What's happened since the Arab Spring is the military's come back and the economy is in a bad state. They've made the economy even worse. People are struggling daily to even live. Bread, milk is struggling. Egypt has to go to the IMF. So people are thinking about their day-to-day living. They can see Gaza going on. There have been protests in Egypt, but they've clamped down on them. Yeah. However, but if you look, when this started, Egypt and Jordan both said to America that if you let Israel go to war, we are going to have a problem with our population. Because you got to remember, our rulers, they don't represent the people. Our rulers represent themselves, and they know if they want to survive, they have to have a good relationship with America. So if America has an agenda, they will support it. Like we saw with the Jordanian monarchy, they helped America shoot down Iranian drones.
Right. Yeah, this was
they have clearly, I mean, to be honest with you, the Jordanian leadership have always been against the Ummah anyway.
Right. I mean,
this isn't new.
Biggest hypocritical.
So remember, what you've got is Israel, the West, and our rulers on one side, and then you've got the Ummah on the other side. That's what's going on here. And our rulers think by using an iron fist, we will stay in power. And what they don't know, if they look at history, European history, they look at Muslim world history, and look, you may last for a couple of decades. The Ummah will eventually overthrow you. Eventually it will happen. You'll become so divided. And the biggest problem Egypt's got is your economy is in such a bad state. The people already hate you.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it seems like even the ones that maybe had some type of maybe some type of good feelings for Sisi, and even they are beyond. They're sick of the man.
No, it's got.
Now he's building that city over there, which looks like, in many ways, Sheikh, a city that is going to keep the military away from the people. It seems like he's trying to create that type of environment in Egypt where the army can never feel what the average person on the street is feeling. I mean, is that? It seems like the whole security apparatus of Egypt, the number one goal is to avoid a coup.
Yes, regime survival. You know, we set up a system since 1953, and that system is, the military leadership is a company, it's a corporation, but you got 100 million population, so you have to manage them. And this is their way of doing it. This is unfortunately what you have in dictatorships. This is what you get. You got a similar scenario in Iran. In Iran, it just happened to be the clerical regime. Same scenario. Right. It's about regime survival. You got same situation in Pakistan. The military leadership is about regime survival. So if you want your regime to survive, you won't go to war with Israel. It's not in your interest. In fact, it's in your interest to have good relations with Israel. However, you can't do that when your people are against that. So what you do is what Saudi do. Behind the scenes, you have good relations. Publicly, you criticize Israel. So that's why it's important the Ummah make it very difficult for the rulers. The Ummah keep coming out on the streets. The Ummah keep exposing them. Muslims who live in the West, we've got the bandwidth, we've got the time, and we don't have the threat. We should be naming and shaming the rulers. Turkey only this week said we're cutting links with Israel. Where have you been for the last 6 months when the massacre was going on?
And it actually didn't even do that in reality.
Where was Iran for 6 months?
Right. They
did nothing. And the moment the embassy got attacked in Syria, then they said we're going to do something. These are the rulers we have. This is what they say. Erdogan the Mujaddid, you've seen what Mujaddid is.
Right.
50% of Israeli oil was going through Turkey. So it's too late now. And in fact, you're going to laugh at this. In UK, we got elections coming up later on this year, and the opposition party is going to win easily. The only thing that's standing in the way now is because of their support for Israel, there's a lot of anti-feeling against that party. And even non-Muslims are saying, we have to give Labour a bloody nose because of Gaza. This is non-Muslims saying this. So, this is why, our rulers, like American Israel, they're thinking very short term. They're thinking, how do we survive this? But the actions they're doing to survive is creating a bigger problem for them in the long run. Problem of credibility. Problem of stability. Yeah, and these things are important. These things are very important. And at the same time, people, around the world just feel, China has more goodwill in the world than America does.
Well,
China isn't imperial.
Right.
It's not imperial. It's not invading any country. Yeah, it's not got country under sanctions. Yeah, this is only got. I was just reading the other day. Some of these Republican congressmen, they wrote a letter to the ICJ, the International Criminal Court, saying, if you issue an arrest warrant for Netanyahu, we're going to put sanctions on you. I mean, this is math. This is what the mafia do. This is what the mafia do.
Yeah.
If you don't do this,
they name them. They'll.
This is what the global
I didn't believe at first
superpower.
that letter like that could be written, man. But subhanAllah, they actually wrote a letter and they said that I guess they will not allow him to come to the US.
This shows you how desperate they are. Because they've lost credibility, you just resort to violence. What happened to convincing the ICJ? What happened to making a legal argument? What happened to making... They've lost that. They can't even make that argument. That's the problem they've got now. That's why, as bad as things look, and they are bad, we're on the other side of the world compared to Palestine. And it is bad for the people. However, it says the victory, with darkness comes ease.
Right.
And really, I can see where I am, is really everything Israel, America, and the West are doing, they're actually creating their own downfall. So whilst they may win this one battle, whilst we may lose this one battle, they are already losing the war and we're already winning the war. Now, we may not be able to see that yet, but it's very important that, they're going to think we massacred, we carried out a genocide, we won. What they don't realize is you lost all credibility doing that. And this makes it difficult for our rulers. How can our rulers do nothing when the Ummah is seething? In the West, you've got university protests going on. Like, if you're the ruler, you want to nip this in the bud. You want this to finish. And now you've got like students who are protesting. So it's not looking good for them in the long run. And I'm telling you, so many things can happen which will be a problem for them. If the Ukraine war gets worse, if China does something in Taiwan, if there's a coup against a Muslim ruler, how many things are you going to deal with as America?
I think if it's one place, just one place, if there's a coup in one place in the Muslim ruler and in Muslim lands, I think it's... what could they do, Sheikh? If there is a coup, that would mean what? Go to war? Can Egyptian scenario happen again? Somebody like Morsi comes in and then replaced by Sisi type of guy. Is that still possible in the Muslim lands?
That's possible, but America only has limited bandwidth. There's too many problems going on. There are things that are beyond their control. And the example that comes to my mind is when the Berlin Wall came down in 1989 in Germany, and the Red Army wasn't sent in. Everybody realized, the Soviet Union is not as powerful as we thought. Anywhere before, when there was an uprising, the Red Army used to come in. So what happened after that? All the different areas in Europe said, we want to leave the Soviet Union. They weren't worried anymore. They just needed that to happen to see the Soviet Union had become so weak. There were so many areas rising up. They just decided, look, there's nothing we can do. America's at that point. Because when this happens, people will say, yeah, clearly America was weak. But we need that event to happen. And that's why who would have thought when the Soviet Union collapsed, within 30 years in your lifetime, America would be in the same position as the Soviet Union? It's too big, it's overgrown, internal divisions, so many problems. That's where America is. And that's why I want to give this positive message that, things are bad in Palestine. it's horrific. Every day, we're hearing of mass graves, we're hearing what they did in the hospitals, and that is bad. And our prayers and our thoughts are with these people. But there's a silver lining. In the long run, they are creating their own demise. That's what they're doing.
That's for sure. I think Palestine, as they say, it's a graveyard for, I think, every idea, everything that they ever stood for. That's for sure.
If you look at America, the graveyard of empires is always Afghanistan.
Yes.
And then internal. America's already lost in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
America's got internal divisions.
Right.
Basically just a matter of time now.
Sheikh, final issue here. Economics. When you think of the American economy or the Western economy in general, almost every economist that you listen to, in whatever shape or form, podcast, or you're reading foreign policy magazines or economists and things like that, almost everywhere there's a very grim picture that there is a collapse coming. Could that be the reason why U.S. is keeping up wars in order to avoid collapse? Is that something that's why I was asking you about, the last discussion we had last Friday. There was a discussion that are wars being used as, quantitative easing type of idea, just to keep them going. The only industry that you can see growing is the industrial, as far as, you're looking at weapons industries.
Yeah. Look, this is not a new tactic. It's exactly what the Roman Empire did. This is what most empires have done. They believed we can keep the empire going if we keep going to wars. Now, that's fine. If you don't win those wars, though, there's a problem. If you don't win those wars, you're losing lives. You're losing material. It's costing you, because wars cost money.
The treasury, yeah, sure.
Yeah, it costs money. America's already in debt. Yeah, the debt is more than the GDP. If America defaults or can't pay one payment, America's whole credibility goes out the window.
But Sheikh, the problem is, will somebody allow that to happen against China? Think seriously. Will China allow even the US to collapse?
Look, I think the fact that China is buying up loads of gold and silver, I think China's preparing for it. China knows. China I mean, it used to be the largest holder of US Treasury bills. It's not anymore now. Now it's, I think, Japan. They've been reducing it. Yeah, but you can see, the divisions in America. The differences.
I guess what I'm saying
inside
is
America.
for China has had, China has survived on the American markets. So I guess that's what I'm asking.
Remember,
Would it allow it to?
China has a plan now. China it's had this strategy since 2015 that we need to move away from being the industrial exporter to the West. We need to move to the next generation of technologies, AI, quantum computing, robotics. We need to move there. We got to move away from being the cheapest place to manufacture goods for the world to now building these new technologies. Because you're right, from 1979 until recently, China's whole economic model has been we manufacture cheap and the West get cheap goods. But they did that to develop their country. They've done that now. So now they're already shifting to a new type of economy. So when the economic crisis happened in 2009, that's when they realized when the West goes into recession, it has a knock-on effect on China. So from that point, they decided we need to go to a new economic model now. So now they want to make the next generation of technologies. And actually, you'll find, Sheikh, Europe has no problem with that. Europe is happy to buy technology from China if it's cheap. America's not happy about that. America doesn't want Europe to be the region that effectively supports the rise of China. But if you're Europe and America's declining and China's coming up, what side do you want to be on? Do you want to be on the side of the guy going down, or do you want to be on the side of the area coming up?
Just what happens to India?
That's why Trump was very negative towards Europe. He used to criticize them all the time. That you're supposed to be on our side, but you're running to China all the time, buying electronic vehicles and making new economic deals.
Can US push India to war against China?
No, even India, you find that America's not completely happy, because what they do is India realizes that although it has a lot of tension with China, they have a good economic relationship. And America's actually not happy that the Indian government isn't going more aggressive towards China. So India and China are at war in the Himalayas. The economics is still growing. And as far as India's always been a bit independent. India's always been, look, we want to trade with both sides. We don't want to really take a side. And so even the BJP, who are very close to America still isn't happy that, look, why are you not being more aggressive towards China? That's as far as India's concerned. You've got a problem with China. We don't have that. We have a problem, but it's a different problem. It's to do with the Himalayas. It's to do with that region. So America's ideal strategy is Japan, South Korea, Australia, Vietnam, India. America supports them, and they basically create a problem or containment around China. But America's finding it's not happening neatly. And think about it, if you're the Indian leader, yeah, you can go to war with China because America wants you to. That's very risky, though. Or you can have good relations with China. You can have good relations with China and try and maintain a decent relationship with America. Yeah. Unfortunately, our rulers aren't like that. America says jump, they say how high. You got Israel, who's weaker. Look, India is, what energy does India have? It gets it all from the Middle East.
Right.
Saudi, the Gulf states, Egypt potentially have got more resources, can be more powerful, but unfortunately the rulers can't see beyond America. Whilst India has got so many issues internally, but they're still, they're not completely in line with America. Yeah. And our rulers need to realize, that the world around them is changing. If they think, let's just get in bed with America, we'll be okay, they're mistaken, because look at America. There's a reason why loads of Civil War films are coming out in America, because that's the direction America's going.
So, Sheikh, when we say regional or prospects of war, where does it begin? If we are going towards that, is it Europe? Where is the theater? Or are they different?
The world wars, the world wars. If you look at history, have always been in Europe. They've begun in Europe.
Right. That's what I was thinking. I mean, by the way, the assassinations that are taking place of different leadership type of, I think yesterday was Slovakia or something like this when they...
Slovakian, yeah.
Yeah. And
So we don't
Is
know all
this,
the
are these
details
some-
yet.
yeah,
We don't know all the
details.
details yet. I mean, even Slovakia, to be honest with you, doesn't usually come up on the radar.
Right.
And I mean, we still don't know all the details of what exactly happened. I mean, this is different to, do you remember when the Turkish bodyguard,
Right. He
he
shot
killed
guy
the
from
Russian
right.
ambassador, yeah? Everything that was going on in Syria. This, some people are trying to view it like that, but we don't know. I don't think it's like that, to be honest with you. I think there may be other issues going on in that country. The thing you've got in Europe now is Russia's expanding. How do you stop Russia? No one country in Europe can stop Russia. They're going to have to come together. If they come together, that's a continent-wide war.
So starting with
They're
Poland.
already telling people in Germany, they're saying 18-year-olds need to now join the army. You need to have 1 year military service. They're getting them ready. And remember, World War II was 70 plus years ago. They're due a war. And if a war is going on in Europe, China has to take a side. What side are you on?
Does it have to
and
take
remember,
a side?
it was,
or just waits, kind of waits it along? I mean,
what
the way what the US did.
What I mean by taking a side, what it can do is Taiwan's a problem. Taiwan is a slur on their name, and they might do something about it, but all the attention is on Europe.
Take China, or at least take Taiwan, and then.
And if Donald Trump doesn't win the election in November, there's a very good chance half of Americans will refuse to accept the result. So when war kicks off in Europe,
that is very true. But okay, when war, I know I said it will be a last question, but Sheikh, why is it the Americans don't seem to have? Why do they have a leadership problem right now? Why only Trump or Biden? What happened here, Sheikh, that they could not, having what they have, resources, with everything that they have going, being a superpower, having the education institutions, peace or stability, but here you are trying to figure out either Biden or Trump. This is what they could come up with.
Yeah, not the best. People look at these two leaders and think, I mean, the fundamental problem Americans have is they feel America as a nation doesn't work for them. The politicians who are supposed to represent them, they absolutely don't represent them.
Right.
So this is why, if you're not a politician, if you're from outside politics, you're going to get voted in. And remember Trump, when he says Mexicans are raping us, Chinese are raping us, South Korea, Saudi should pay us for us to give them security, many Americans believe that. The main problem is many Americans believe for the last 2 decades we've been at war. How has that benefited Americans? We've just lost soldiers in Iraq and Afghanistan. They believe the politicians have thrown loads of money at wars. That hasn't benefited America. So their view is America's broken. This nation, Europeans came to America, settled and established the United States of America. The Republic is to serve the people. Many Americans feel the Republic doesn't serve them anymore. Corrupt politicians, military companies, corporations, financial institutions, America works for them and they're raping the country. And now what Americans feel is we want to take the country back. So they're saying, forget foreign policy, forget foreign bases, forget what's going on around the world. America for Americans. This is the Roman Empire. This is what happened in the Roman Empire in the end. The Roman Empire, you could count on your hand, the empire was serving 5 people. So they used to make lies. There's a threat. There's a national security threat. They used to do loads of entertainment, bread and circus to keep them busy. But eventually people saw through this. They're like, I have to send my son to go and fight in a war on the other side of the world. What's the war even got to do with America? And remember, I mean, I was just shocked the other day. The mainstream opinion now is the official view of 9/11 is a conspiracy. The mainstream view is 9/11 was a setup. That's the mainstream view now in America. If I now say the government said this is the official view, I'm the conspiracy theorist. People refuse to accept what officially saying, and I think COVID messed it up. Many people in America they refuse to accept the official version. Yeah.
Well, also,
I don't know if you know,
the same thing.
I don't know if you know, last week, AstraZeneca, who made one of the vaccines, they've withdrawn their vaccine now because they said it causes blood clots.
Oh, wow.
This is what people were saying when COVID happened. How can we trust these vaccines? And everyone said, you're a conspiracy theorist. They've now withdrawn their vaccine because it causes blood clots. This is so people are saying, so this is why America's broken. This is why the politicians don't represent the people. The people believe America is supposed to serve us. It's not. America's serving the 1%. This is why America's in a civil war scenario. This is why. It's the people versus the 1%. So that's why if something happened in the world, America's got bigger problems at home.
I mean, this is a discussion we have to really have one time, I think, go into the details of what civil war might look like. I mean, what are we looking at? Complete destruction
any soldier in the army, in the Muslim world, if he ever thought, I need to do something to make change, he's probably thinking more, America would come, I might mess it up. America's got its own problems.
Not only that, I mean, you have soldiers setting themselves on fire, Sheikh. This is unbelievable. This has never happened. I mean, what's unfortunate, I've never seen, I'm not saying that the Muslims should do that, but I haven't seen Muslim armies, any Muslim soldier, or, I think one in Egypt actually did take out his uniform and throw it out and things like this. So it's getting there. We're seeing the signs of some serious stuff going on. But
this is so important because, obviously you look at what's going on in Gaza and it's heart-wrenching. Our prayers are with them, but it's important that, look, what's going on, really the future's bright. The future is the status quo can't continue. The future is the status quo has been exposed. The future is the West and all its supporters have been exposed to be warmongers and genocide deniers. That's what's actually going on. People want a different system. People want a different global order. The old order doesn't work.
I mean, even it looks like, Sheikh Asrar, I was reading his book, and we'll make this the final thing because there's so much to talk about. Even that book, I want to bring some of the points out of that book one day to discuss with you. But I was reading this book yesterday, Sheikh, and one of the amazing things he pointed out, he said, when he was asked the question regarding why he named even the book Intellectual Intifada for the coming of the Khilafah, for instance, for the coming of Caliphate, one of the things he said is that I called it Intellectual Intifada is because the Muslims and non-Muslims have to realize that there is an alternative to the tyranny that we live in. Just because you are in the West, at least now even the West, questionable, but just because you're living in the West and you're living in the area that is the most area that has benefited the most from capitalism, does not mean that's how the rest of the world feels. The rest of the world feels there's the oppression, genocide, killing, wars, poverty, destruction. There's no future. No one can see one for themselves anywhere else in the world. So I guess, so for even scholars to start writing these type of books show, I think that, our future is bright. And that, alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, that the Ummah is reconnecting to its past. And for us, that's success. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen.
Right, the light, it comes from the darkness. The light comes after the darkness.
صحيح.
We should be positive, inshallah.
Inshallah, Sheikh. Inshallah. Wallah, Jazakallah khair. It's always an honor. It's always a very interesting discussion having you, Sheikh. We always go on over time, hour and a half, mashallah, tabarakallah. But inshallah, I am, as I mentioned to you, I will be in Syria, and once we come back, I'll have to have a discussion with you again from what I am seeing there on the ground and the developments there, inshallah. But Jazakallah khair for your time, Sheikh. Allahumma taqabbal. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Jazakallah khair, Sheikh.
لا لن يطول الظلام ديننا لن يضام نحن جيل الهمام نحن فينا عمر لا 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 لن يطول الظلام ديننا لن يضام نحن جيل الهمام نحن فينا عمر صبح بدا نور ظهر نجم وشمس وقمر ألقى على الدنيا الدرر. هذا عمر، هذا عمر، كل البرايا تنتظر أيامه البيض الغرر كي تستفيد من العبر. هذا عمر، هذا عمر. لا، لن تدوم الجراح، بل سيأتي الصباح. نحن أهل الكفاح، نحن فينا عمر. لا، لن تدوم الجراح، بل سيأتي الصباح.